Hey, what's up, guys? This is Thunderstruck115. I hope you're having a good day today. I know I am because I'm on the fall break right now. Because today we're going to be taking a look at a video by Under the Mayo. Yeah, that Under the Mayo. The title of the video we're responding to is Halo Infinite: Empty, Confused, and Unfinished. Now, Halo Infinite is one of the weirdest relationships I've ever had with a game. On one hand, I love the gameplay, but on the other hand, there's so much shit surrounding it that greatly drags down my opinion of it. Of course, most of this game's shit factor has to do with the multiplayer. The campaign, however, is actually pretty damn good, although it's certainly not perfect as there are some genuine flaws with the game. And Under the Mayo's video is focused solely on the campaign, by the way. Now, you might be wondering, Thunder, this video was uploaded 9 months ago. Why are you only responding to it now? Well, several reasons. Number one is that I didn't even know who Under the Mayo was until I saw Brother Near's response to his Style Meters video. And number two, I didn't know that he did a video on Halo Infinite's campaign. Now, apparently Mayo's history with the Halo series is a rocky one, as he blamed it for what he considers to be the downfall of first-person shooters in this video, which, no, I don't plan on responding to since Shredded Nerd did a pretty damn good job of that already. I'll, link his video in the description. But enough beating off the bush, let's get right into this. Side note, I am going to be speeding past a lot of his intro since I don't really have any issues with it. Well, except for one, which I need for context.
This video contains spoilers for many parts of Halo Infinite's campaign. Talking about Halo Infinite is kind of tricky, for me at least. I have a complicated relationship with the series. I haven't played the majority of the titles. I played some of the Halo 1 campaign and co-op with friends when it came out. I played multiplayer here and there at LAN parties back in 2002. I played a bit of Halo 2 multiplayer because all my friends played it, but I wasn't a console shooter guy. I preferred the fast-paced shooters that I used on PC, like Quake and Tournament. And I didn't play any Halo games after that. For a long time, I held a grudge against Halo because I didn't like the direction that first-person shooters took after its massive success, and by extension the effect that Call of Duty ended up having. Almost 20 years later, I decided to revisit Halo, and I was able to appreciate it for the game that it is, finally separating my emotional reaction to it when it came out from the objective quality of the game itself. I detail that emotional reaction in my Polarizing video, Halo and first-person shooters, which is about how I personally experienced Halo affecting my local first-person shooter scene and future FPS titles in years to come, ultimately ending with me finding respect for Halo at the end of the day. And I have a follow-up video that clarifies those feelings. I am not a Halo fan, but I'm also not a Halo hater. The games I played, Halo 1 and 2, were good as far as I know. I haven't played them deeply enough to thoroughly examine them, and as Halo Infinite's release date is approaching, I've been excited, but honestly kind of nervous too. I avoided the early release multiplayer because as someone who's not a big Halo fan, I just wanted to dive into the campaign on launch day and experience the game that way. So what you're gonna see here is the gameplay and opinion of someone who is not a Halo player. If all you want is the opinion of someone who really knows the series and can jump into the game immediately on Legendary, you're not gonna get it here. I'm just going into this game hoping for a good time. I looked up some videos to catch me up on the story. I don't know advanced Halo strategies or what weapons are best. I'm just playing the game, and that's it.
I want everybody watching this to remember this clip, because later it is going to be relevant when he tries to lecture people on the core conceit of Halo, and surprise, surprise, he gets it completely wrong.
This video will solely focus on my campaign because I'm super guy. The multiplayer is fine, it's fun. I don't have anything else to say about it. If you want to hear about puns and mass and version, tutorials. Here we go. I'll start before I really like Halo. It's nice sometimes. I take 14 resolution and I barely do anything. The performance isn't the greatest, but looking stuff is FPS on PC ensures solid experience for resolution. I still love how detailed more Master Chief Suit is. You can still have history there. The enemies look classic, really run game like game years ago. Burns really funny and cute. I love the same Taiwan. The weapons are cool and the badness have fun designs and are detailed. I'm not familiar enough with Master Chief having a finished wounds character. The voice acting made me smile though, but the charm to him. The rifle feels good to shoot. I would let you target any helmets and maybe headshot. There's a lot of tests on headshots on too. It's a bit much, but I think it's good that you really hit combat because of fast and outcomes. The replicate is fantastic in Halo's combat companion. Being able to pull movements to you, grab ammo, save investigation, fight new enemies, point fight, the additional upgrade that gives harsh punches super powerful. All of this made me someone who generally frustrated that feels more grid on the battlefield. From what I've seen, all the Halo players appreciate the coordinated, though I'm sure everyone's like it. The graphics also has diverse and not ways. Stand down, stand in the rear, and some fun speakers in I'm sure speakers are annoying. A favorite addition is the addition of close logics. Being able to roll explode caster and throw actually burns or hotter is very satisfying and adds the improvisation to your combat. With the action Halo, it reads going and play more aggressively. They find game fun. It gives you tools to allow you to overextend and put yourself in dangerous situations to get fun and then switch strategies better. For example, using damage to elite and know if they fail you to launch and now I'm exposed, I'll put them in a shield and you can cover life and it's pretty fun. I do wish it had some kind of way to refill your health without just taking cover, but at least there's a decent balance between strong offensive and defensive options.
Here's another clip I want y'all to keep in mind. He says that there's a good range of offensive and defensive options in Halo Infinite's campaign, because when he starts complaining about this game, he's gonna say something that will leave you with the most puzzled look on your face.
As a new player, playing the game on Heroic for my first playthrough, I died plenty of times, but I also rarely found myself getting stuck in a battle for longer than 10 minutes or so if I was struggling. Halo Infinite is at its best when it asks you to use several tools at once, which it doesn't always do. Halo is known for that sandbox style of gameplay where you can approach battles in different ways. And in my experience, it usually allows for really lame play to be very effective. If I'm pushing forward and trying to win a fight in a more run-and-gun confrontational style, and I die several times for it, I feel like Halo Infinite wants me to stop and think about what I could do better. Smarter grapples, better management of shields and trackers, awareness of enemies around me. And sure, I could do that. I could put in the work to play more efficiently or intelligently. Or, I could just sit back here and snipe everyone from cover, and that works just as well, if not better, and it's way easier. I do wish it had some kind of way to refill your health without just taking cover, but at least there's a decent balance between strong offensive and defensive options.
There's a difference between playing aggressively and playing recklessly. Just running out into the open when enemies have their weapons trained on your location and they can open up on you as soon as you run out of cover is going to get you killed, especially on the higher difficulties like Heroic or Legendary. But in this instance, what you could do is run around the structure, come at the enemies from a different angle that they're not expecting, which gives you more time to close the gap as they won't see you immediately. Or go up to the top of the structure to gain a height advantage, and then use that height advantage to come at them from above. Sure, you can snipe your enemies from cover, but that's the great thing about Halo, it gives you a wide variety of viable options for getting through encounters. But you have to play smart to get them to work, but if you are playing smart, then they will, even on Legendary.
And that's one of my main issues with Halo, it always has been. The fact that staying alive is a matter of hiding behind a box and waiting for your shield to recharge, when there's no active health recovery option, like map knowledge to grab high-value health pickups like in Quake, managing stim packs to heal yourself in critical moments like Fear, managing stim packs to heal yourself in critical moments like Fear.
Wait, I'm sorry, did you just list Fear as an example of a game that lets you play more aggressively because of active health regeneration? Well, as somebody who is currently in the middle of a playthrough of Fear, which is a great game by the way, I can tell that Mayo quite clearly does not know what he's talking about because you die extremely quickly in Fear. Plus, health packs run off a limited supply, like you said, and the only way to increase that supply is by finding more of them scattered throughout the level, which is mostly done by exploring the areas in between the encounters and rarely will be positioned in the middle of one. Additionally, since health regeneration in that game is tied to a finite amount of health packs, it means if you run out because you were playing aggressively and got hit a lot because of it, you're gonna run out, and then you'll have no choice but to stay back in cover. Whereas Halo Infinite only asks that you go for 5 seconds without taking any damage, and your shield will recharge. And this can be done as many times as you like, which means as long as you can stay alive and occasionally find some cover to use, it means that you can play very aggressively in Halo, because health regeneration is not tied to a finite resource. Like, honestly, this is almost as bad as Chopper comparing Elden Ring and Black Ops 4.
Or, yes, of course, how could I not mention Doom's glory kill system where melee kills refill health and the flame belch refills armor? When all I can do is run away and hide, why go forward into combat in the first place? Why not just run and hide the whole time and never risk dying?
Oh my god. Here we go again. This is the same stupid-ass argument that Mayo tried using to bash another game called Ultra Kill by saying that you can win the game by using nothing but the charge pistol. And quite frankly, it's just as stupid now. If all you do is stay back in cover and snipe enemies from a distance, then all you're doing is limiting your options in creativity for no good reason. Because the core conceit of Halo is focused around a sandbox. And part of that is experimenting with different weapons and playstyles to find more efficient ways to eliminate enemies. It would be like if I were to argue that Doom Eternal is boring because I just stay back and shoot everything from a distance with the heavy cannon. Sure, you can do that, it works, but you'd be limiting your options for no good reason. But that's the same thing you're doing right here in Halo Infinite.
If there were little 10% shield recharge pickups scattered around, or something more active, I would like this game so much more. But hey, Halo is Halo, and in Halo Infinite they've made both your shield and health bar regenerating, so it is what it is. I'm not gonna start complaining about the other stuff, 2-weapon limit, reloading. That's how Halo plays, it's fine.
Then why did you bring it up and complain about it in the first place? Like you said, that's just how Halo plays.
I like the enemy-specific and weapon-specific tactics Halo Infinite offers. Plasma weapons to destroy shields, the grapple hook disables shields, kinetic weapons are great for instant headshots, enemies have weak points that you can use to kill them quickly, and certain enemies are good at pushing you to learn the game's mechanics. For example, the Berserkers charge at you at insane speeds and have a lot of health. When they first showed up, they beat the hell out of me repeatedly. But after a few encounters with them, I got good at using the grappling hook to distance myself to kill them from afar, using stun grenades to lock them into place, etc. Berserkers are introduced alone to get you into using certain tactics, and then later they appear mixed into larger battles to shake things up from time to time. Kinda reminds me of someone I know.
I mean, yeah, that's basic game design. Game introduces a new enemy and puts you in a situation where you're fighting solely that enemy to get used to his attacks, then throws them into regular encounters to test your knowledge and skill. That's just basic game design.
There's a couple boss fights that really demand you learn the game, and I think they're pretty good. The final boss was a little frustrating for me, but I appreciate how it combines quick movement, precision, defensive options, and smart grappling to be successful. Tovaris and Hyperius were probably the most difficult fight for me. I died a lot, but I did feel like I came out the other end a better player, which is great.
Weren't you bitching earlier about lame play and staying back and sniping everything from a distance? And yet you're propping up Hyperius and Tovaris as a good boss fight, even though that's the epitome of lame play? As pretty much the only reliable strategy on Legendary, at least, is to stay at a distance and slowly chip away at its health with precision weapons, like the Battle Rifle or Commando. Like, I'm sorry, am I missing something? Like, if there's a better way to defeat this boss that actually works reliably that I'm just missing, please, let me know. But otherwise, no, Hyperius and Tovaris is not a well-designed boss fight because it forces you into lane play. Like, it reminds me of the worst elements of Halo 4.
This guy was pretty good too. Disabling shields while keeping your distance plays well into Halo Infinite's mechanics. And my favorite boss fights were the invisible ones, where I was using my motion tracker in combination with exploding canisters and stunning weapons and grapple hook melee. At times it was fantastic. I wanted the whole game to feel like this, like I was being held accountable for my decisions. I felt like if I were playing dumb, I would die, whereas in a lot of other encounters in the game, dumb play is rewarded. There is one boss fight though that is so pathetic I can't believe it's in the game. And it's in the game twice. This guy. Unbelievably bad boss fight. Shocking. You just shoot the 4 parts of his ship and shoot the middle and hide from his laser. It's so bad.
What? I don't understand this dude's logic here. Like, he shits on this boss fight when it allows for a wide variety of play styles instead of just lame play. Yet he props up Hyperius and Tovaris, which pretty much pushes you into lane play. Like, I don't fucking understand what he... Like, I can't understand this fucking logic. Like, okay, I suppose the first fight against Adjutant Resolution is admittedly a little easy. But the second fight is a lot more challenging because, number one, he can call on Sentinels to back him up, and number two, and the more important one, is the arena is constantly shifting. Sometimes cover will pop up where there wasn't some before, and other times cover that you were relying on will lower and go away, making for a much more dynamic fight.
But I gotta get to what I think the general issues of Halo Infinite's campaign are. Let's go in, more or less.
Alright, at this point, Mayo starts heavily criticizing the story, and honestly, I have to agree with him on this one. Halo Infinite's story is not all that great, even as somebody who knows Halo's story up to this point. So yeah, I guess this is just an instance of a broken cock rising twice a day.
Complementing the lifeless presentation of story is the lifeless world the game takes place in. I'm just calling the map the island because that's what it is. I find this map to be confused. Not confusing to navigate because it's quite simple and fairly small, but the overall design decision is confusing. Why did they make it like this? They've made a linear open world game. It takes the designs of linear level-based games and non-linear open world exploration games and mashes them together in a way that bafflingly ends up leaving out all the positive aspects of both. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not much of a fan of open world games. At least, not right now. I remember having lots of fun with the old 3D GTA titles, and I loved Red Dead Redemption, but that was 10 years ago, and maybe I've just changed or I'm simply tired of the genre, but currently it's difficult for me to enjoy those types of experiences. It was my main concern going into Halo Infinite. I was worried about a game packed full of grinding side quests.
Here's another clip I want y'all to keep in mind, because he's gonna contradict himself later.
And I was especially concerned about having to spend 20 to 30 hours on this one island looking at trees and rocks. The first time I got to the island, I opened the map and thought, oh god, look at all these places. I don't even know where to begin. I felt overwhelmed, but fortunately it was easy to figure out. Yellow markers for the main storyline, red markers for FOB points that unlock armories and fast travel, and there's assassination missions and whatever. So let's talk about open world design. These FOB points let you fast travel so you don't have to drive around, and really, thank God, because driving around isn't all that exciting and lots of the terrain is unfriendly to vehicles. You don't need to drive around hoping to catch a rare event. And the world isn't interesting to explore because there just isn't much to see. It's literally just drive from one point to the other. And I know lifeless is a strong word to use when describing this map, but I'm not exaggerating. This place is dead.
Congratulations, Mayo, you missed the point. The reason Halo Infinite's world is dead is because it's a battleground after the battle has already taken place. Remember, by the time you show up on Zeta Halo, the Human Banished War is over. The UNSC lost. So, of course, it's going to feel dead, because that's the whole point. The overwhelming majority of UNSC forces are dead or have been captured by the Banished. There's only a few select pockets that are managing to stay alive. So, of course, the world's going to feel dead because that's what 343 was going for.
There's not a single thing happening here outside of the static side missions that are always there regardless of the hour of the day. If this were a real living place, you would be driving to a mission and then stumble upon something like a banished supply truck transporting ammo to a base. But there's nothing here.
I mean, there are the banished patrols that you will run into when exploring the map, or the makeshift camps from UNSC soldiers that are now abandoned, likely because they're now dead or have been captured. There's a couple shrines to Atriox, and of course there's all the stuff for the side missions. So yes, the world is dead, but that doesn't mean it's empty.
There are no real side quests in this game. By that, I mean you're not going to one place of the map, meeting characters, learning story, accepting missions for a reward, traveling to other parts of the map, possibly returning to the original location. None of that. I was worried about a game packed full of grinding side quests.
So you were worried that Halo Infinite would have a bunch of grinding side quests, But then when 343 answers your prayers and doesn't put grinding side quests into the game, it's a problem? Like, what do you want? Like, if you want long-form grinding side quests like that, go play an RPG like Skyrim, Borderlands, or Fallout. Halo doesn't need that, because that's not what the focus of the game is on. The focus is on the combat, unlike those RPGs that I mentioned. So, Mayo, I'm gonna have to ask you to
keep that same energy.
These bonus missions are mostly just about liberating the one area and hitting some switches to open a gate or something. Go here and kill this guy so you can unlock a weapon. Go over here and rescue a squad from an ambush for valor points. Nothing that actually utilizes the map, traversal, exploration, storytelling. That's not to say some of them aren't fun. The outposts where you're recapturing these large banished bases are long, elaborate combat sequences, if you choose to do them. They're certainly better than a lot of the copy-paste missions you find at a lot of spots. But again, this stuff very much feels like an, go over and liberate this area if you want to, but it doesn't really matter.
I mean, yeah, it's a side mission, they're optional for a reason. Them being there to do them only if you want to is kind of the entire point.
So what about the main mission path? The main missions take you from the left part of the map where you gotta disable towers, to the middle section where you gotta disable gun turrets, to the bottom right where you have to disable 4 beacons. That's the game. Almost every time you hit a switch, and you listen to Cortana talk about something. In between each part of the map, you're entering tunnels and spaceships, which contain some decent combat sections here and there, and other parts that are largely empty where you're hitting more switches. You earn Valor as you play, main mission or not, which unlocks additional weapons and vehicles at the FOB points, but I found it largely unnecessary. I didn't even realize I was earning this Valor stuff until the game was over, and I still had unlocked plenty of weapons by just following the main missions.
And how is this a bad thing? Because all the Valor really does is let you spawn certain weapons and vehicles at the FOBs, which works with Halo's sandbox design. Doing the extra side content will allow you to get some of the weapons and vehicles that don't unlock until very later, but if you just want to stick to the main mission path because you don't want to do the side content, you'll still get plenty of options to use, so that the game will still work well. That is good game design.
It makes all the side stuff feel kinda meaningless, especially when the mission design is so basic and repetitive. And I know that earlier I said I was initially worried about having to engage in a lot of typical open world stuff like XP grinding and elaborate side quests, but I gotta say, an open world style map without that stuff kinda feels pointless.
The fact that you acknowledge that you have double standards doesn't make it any better. In fact, it kind of only makes it worse because you continue to hold them. Honestly, this shit just writes itself at this point.
Why are we even doing this? Just make it a linear campaign if you're not going to put the effort into fleshing out the map with interesting things to engage with.
I'll admit, the side quests could use a little more variety, but I don't think this is a huge issue, and let me explain why. In a game like Far Cry or GTA, those games often rely on a wide variety of different side content to be able to do, because the mechanics in those games aren't all that deep. Halo, on the other hand, has the very deep combat system that it's had ever since Halo CE back in 2001. And each little iteration, including Infinite, has its own spin on that gameplay, which keeps the combat fresh and interesting. Therefore, everything in Halo Infinite is designed to get you to engage in the combat, because the combat is fun in and of itself. Whereas in something like GTA or Far Cry, you need the diverse types of content in order to keep you engaged due to the fact that those games' mechanics aren't anywhere near as developed. Sure, each mission where you save Marines might be structured the same, but it's set in vastly different environments with different level design, and each one presents a new combat challenge for you to overcome and think your way through. Granted, I don't think this means that it's a non-issue, but I don't think it's anywhere near as big of an issue as Mayo is making it out to be.
Here's an imaginary side quest for Halo Infinite. The Banished have captured one of our squads, and they're transporting them to an aerial station for prison transfer. You need to intercept their vehicles on the northern path in the next 5 minutes or they'll be lost forever. Rescue the prisoners and bring them back here safely, which results in a vehicle chase sequence. Amongst the banished is a high-value target, a commander responsible for war crimes. Eliminate him for a bonus reward of valor. Additionally, there's a rare mineral aboard the transport, and if you bring it back, you'll get a permanent +5 ammo capacity upgrade to the pulse rifle. Wow, wouldn't that be fun and rewarding? How is there not a single side mission or even main mission objective like this? I was worried about a game packed full of grinding side quests.
What you are describing is quite literally the definition of a grindy side quest. You know, the thing that you said earlier that you didn't want this game to have? And maybe it doesn't sound all that bad in isolation, but let's keep using this. So you listed an increase to your max ammo capacity for the pulse carbine as a reward. Well, what if every single weapon had a side mission like this? That means you'd have at least 21 side quests to increase the max ammo capacity for all the weapons in the game, as there's 21 weapons in Halo Infinite, barring the weapon variants, of course. And that's just for ammo upgrades. What if you wanted to add side quests to upgrade the damage of your weapons? Or the accuracy? Or its effectiveness against certain types of defense, like shields? And that's just with a single level. Like, if you added multiple levels of ammo capacity upgrades and such, all of a sudden it's gonna get out of hand. And if you thought the objectives currently in Halo Infinite were repetitive, well, I got news for you. What you're describing would get really repetitive really quick. Because there is no way in hell you're going to be able to design that many fucking side quests without them starting to get repetitive. Plus, it would add a bunch of unnecessary progression that this game doesn't need. Halo Infinite is minimalist on its progression for a reason, because the game is not focused on progression, it's focused on the sandbox. Like, it really doesn't need more progression than the Valor and the Spartan cores, and hell, even I think the Spartan cores might be a little much. Once again, Mayo, I'm gonna have to ask you to
Keep that same energy.
Instead, we get mission after mission of isolated targets that have nothing to do with the world, and rescue missions where it doesn't even matter if the soldiers you rescue survive. One time I entered a rescue mission with 3 soldiers helping me. We rescued another 3. Doesn't even matter if the soldiers you rescue survive. One time I entered a rescue mission with 3 soldiers helping me. We rescued another 3.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I need to say something when I just saw that absolute abortion of gameplay footage. This motherfucker was trying to strip an elite shield with a battle rifle. Which, if you know anything about enemy weaknesses in Halo, you know how shitty of an idea that is. Then he does a grapple super punch to finish off his shields, okay. But now that his shields are down, instead of headshotting him, he switches to his rocket launcher and wastes a rocket on a single elite that has its shield down. Like, what the fuck is this? Just in case you need any clarification that this motherfucker has no idea what he's talking about.
Doesn't even matter if the soldiers you rescue survive. One time I entered a rescue mission with 3 soldiers helping me. We rescued another 3 soldiers, and at the end of the mission, only 1 was alive. I lost 5 men, and that's a successful mission? Are you kidding me?
Yes, because you saved at least one of the Marines. That's what qualifies as a mission success. Also, in the Marine rescue mission, how do you lose that many Marines? Like, the amount of skill required to keep them alive is not that much higher than the amount of skill required to keep yourself alive, to the point where if your Marines are dying, then it's pretty much guaranteed that you're also gonna die as well and reset the checkpoint. Like, how do you do that? This just seems like a skill issue, to be honest.
There's no interesting characters to meet, there's no side missions that affect the main story, even in a small way. This world is so empty. This is a big issue, so I'm gonna stay with it a little more. The lack of actual open world style missions that require traveling to multiple parts of the map renders the FOB points irrelevant. Because if you don't really need to travel the map and engage in side missions to unlock necessary weapons, and you don't have any side missions that take you back and forth across and all around the map, and if the main mission only crosses the map once, why are these FOB points even here? This is what I mean when I say the game's design is confused.
You're forgetting something very important. The side missions are optional for a reason. You can choose to do these missions if you want them, which I do because I enjoy the combat. But if you don't want to do them because they're too repetitive or whatever, you can ignore them. That's why there isn't such a game-changing reward for doing them. So that way you're not at a major disadvantage if you don't do them. As for the side quests not taking you across the map, that's actually a good thing because then it prevents it from falling into one of the biggest pitfalls of modern open world games. That being having a horrible pacing due to the fact that you have these fun little activities, but they're bookended by long periods of downtime where you're just running across the map trying to get to your next objective. And then there's the FOB points. You said that the game takes you from left to right across the map and no new side quests open up in previous areas once you progress. That is true, but that's an intentional design choice, because it means people who want to 100% a game can take what I refer to as the clean sweep approach. By that, I mean they'll do all the side content in any given area, and then they'll go ahead and do the main missions to progress to the next area. And if you do take the clean sweep approach, then yeah, there really isn't much reason to go back to earlier areas. But again, the side missions are optional. So say you do some of the main campaign and get to, say, the east side of the island, but there were some side quests that you didn't do on the west side of the island, and you say to yourself, maybe I feel like going back and doing them now. It allows you to go back and do them easily without spending a lot of time backtracking. It's so you can go back and do the side missions later if you want.
Additionally, the FOBs kinda break Halo's whole design philosophy, don't they? I suppose that's a bold statement for a non-Halo player to make, but correct me if I'm wrong here. Isn't a big part of the Halo experience the fact that you can't just start any mission with whatever weapons you want? You're regularly depending on what you find in the battlefield, adapting, using weapons you're not comfortable with. So does Halo's combat design actually benefit from being able to spawn in whatever powerful weapons you prefer to rely on, and take them into any battle you want and approach them all identically? I don't think it does.
Alright, so remember that clip I told y'all to remember like way back at the beginning of the video? Well, here it is again.
So what you're gonna see here is the gameplay and opinion of someone who is not a Halo player. If all you want is the opinion of someone who really knows the series and can jump into the game immediately on Legendary, you're not gonna get it here. I'm just going into this game hoping for a good time. I looked up some videos to catch me up on the story. I don't know advanced Halo strategies or what weapons are best. I'm just playing the game, and that's it.
This motherfucker admits he's not a Halo fan or Halo player, yet he's gonna try and lecture us on what the core conceit of Halo is. Well, to answer your question, Mayo, no, you are completely wrong. You approaching encounters the same way is on you for not experimenting. In fact, it's the same logic you tried to use to bash Ultra Kill with by using nothing but the charged pistol. You're just limiting your options for no good reason. But no, giving the player tons of options at a FOB location is not antithetical to Halo's core design philosophy, because Halo's core design philosophy is about giving the player many ways to approach encounters and get through fights, making it so that no one strategy is always the best strategy, while also encouraging the players to experiment to find weapon combinations to eliminate enemies more efficiently. And therefore, having too many options is not antithetical to what Halo's all about. On the contrary, not having enough options is the problem. And unlike you, I'm a Halo fan, and with the exception of Halo 5, I have beaten every single Halo campaign on Legendary multiple times, so I think I know what I'm talking about. So let's take a look at the 3 Halo campaigns that are the most criticized from a gameplay perspective, those being Halo 2 on Legendary, Halo 4, and Halo 5. The core problem with Halo 2 on Legendary is that you as the player are so pathetically weak that most strategies just take longer to actually be effective than you can possibly survive. Trying to get up close to a Covenant enemy with dual SMGs or an energy sword is just going to get you killed. And as a result, for 99% of Covenant encounters in that game, your only real options is to use a precision weapon to get headshots, and for the elites, a plasma pistol to drop their shields with an overcharged shot. You're restricted to this playstyle for the majority of the game, because anything else is going to get you killed. Therefore, Halo 2 is criticized because of the lack of options that result from your low health. Next, we have Halo 4. Now, Halo 4 has a myriad of issues, but with the exception of the teleporting Promethean Knights, pretty much all of them all feed into the lack of options. A big one is the lack of ammo on all the weapons besides the main precision weapons, those being the battle rifle, DMR, carbine, and light rifle. Everything else has a pretty low ammo capacity, and because UNSC weapons aren't really scattered in weapon caches throughout the level, it means that besides those precision weapons that I mentioned, the only weapons you can really use are the ones that enemies carry, which means for Covenant-centric levels, that's the plasma pistol, storm rifle, needler, and carbine. And for Promethean levels, that's the light rifle, scattershot, bolt shot, and suppressor. And if we narrow those down to the weapons that are actually particularly effective, that means for Covenant encounters, you have the carbine, plasma pistol, and needler. And for Promethean encounters, you have the light rifle and scattershot. And even then, sometimes the scattershot isn't useful because if there's a Promethean Knight wielding a scattershot, it'll be able to kill you before you can kill it, leaving you with just the light rifle. Therefore, Halo 4's problem is the lack of options. And then there's Halo 5, which admittedly I haven't played as much of as any of the other Halo games because I just do not enjoy it that much at all. But you die extremely quickly in that game because of the squad mate mechanic, but of course your teammates are pretty fucking dumb, at least on Legendary. Now, it's not nearly as quick as Halo 2 on Legendary, but still pretty bad. The ammo issue from Halo 4 also carries over, though to a lesser extent, but also a lot of the enemies in Halo 5 don't necessarily have more efficient ways to kill them. Like, the Promethean soldiers are a good example. They're just shoot at them until they die, which runs counter to what Halo's about. Therefore, that's antithetical to what Halo is. Halo Infinite has obvious strengths and weaknesses for enemies and allows for multiple playstyles. So no, Halo Infinite allowing you to spawn with any weapon you want at a fob point does not run antithetical to Halo's nature.
Pretty quickly, I was entering every mission with the same weapons, and once I could spawn a battle rifle sniper combo, it was game over. How about we just run into every assassination and rescue mission with rocket launchers and boss weapons? Spam hammers against giant bosses until they die. How about we drive into a rescue mission with a truck full of soldiers and literally just drive the car around mindlessly for a minute and a half while the soldiers shoot every single bad guy that I don't run over with the car, until the mission is over. Wow, this is great mission design, guys.
I mean, right there, you just described multiple viable strategies, and that's only scratching the surface. Like, there's way more than that are viable, even on Legendary. You can rip a plasma turret off and go Rambo with it. You can give power weapons to your Marine allies and lead the charge in the battle. You can get up close using a combination of the grapple hook, energy sword, and grenades. You can go up close using a Ravager with the direct impact of the shots as well as the blade greatly enhancing your melee attack. Combine that with some grenade sticks and some clever positioning with thrusters and grapples. You can get in a Scorpion tank and blow your enemies to hell. You can engage in close quarters combat with the assault rifle or commando. Like, there's a lot of viable strategies in Halo Infinite. Some are very aggressive, others are more defensive. And the thing is, even though you can take power weapons into battle with you, keep in mind that you're still limited on ammo, and this goes triple for the power weapons. Unless there's just power weapon pickups in whatever encounter you happen to be in, you're not going to be able to use it for very long, as even though there's a bunch of weapon crates everywhere, there's only one encounter in the game that has power weapon crates, and that's during the end of a linear mission, and the reason they're there in the first place is because you need to take down several phantoms. But otherwise, for weapons like the rocket launcher, energy sword, sniper rifle, or whatever, you're gonna run out of ammo, forcing you to grab weapons off the ground and use them.
On top of that, there's ammo refill stations all over the place, so you can keep refilling most guns easily and rarely have to put them down. It's really weird. I don't remember ammo stations being in the original games. Maybe they were, I don't know. Regarding the fast travel mechanic, the first time I ever needed fast travel to FOB points was the beacon mission near the end. You gotta go to 4 points of the map, very spread out, and hit a button at each beacon. It's the same thing 4 times, with a lot of travel in between. And since I had never been to this part of the map, I had no FOB points. I desperately wanted fast travel, and I didn't have it. I guess it's my fault for not driving around for hours doing assassination missions and liberating FOB points before deciding to follow the story? Yeah, I guess. Sure.
I mean, that's what the FOB points are fucking there for. It's kinda your fault for not engaging with the game's mechanics.
But at this point of the game, I had already gotten the feeling that there was nothing to see that expanded this world, so I just stuck to the main mission from here on out. And this is when Halo Infinite really started going downhill for me. Hard. The last stretch of the game puts you in this awful beacon chasing mission, and then into another section of a seemingly infinite number of big empty rooms, looking for a stupid amount of switches and watching cutscenes where you're almost exclusively fighting drones. They are not fun in the slightest. They're annoying harassment units, and harassment units need to be used with other units, like a God of War Harpy. They're annoying, but they work with other enemies to create a unique flow to combat. As much as I love God of War, if there was a 30-minute section of all Harpies, I would scream. I started to find myself wondering, is this game even finished? And the answer is no, it isn't. Through the problem-ridden development process, they had to significantly scale back their vision, and 2/3 of the game's content had to be cut, according to this Bloomberg article. That's why the open world feels so bare bones and the missions so boilerplate. I understand that this is 343's best Halo game so far, and it's a nice recovery after Halo 5, but even if you love this game, you gotta admit this could have and should have been a lot better.
I mean, yeah, this game definitely had a troubled development cycle, and it could have been a lot better. This game definitely has its flaws, like a lack of features at launch, such as campaign co-op and Forge. There's some enemies that aren't balanced well, such as hunters, some brute chieftains, and one of the bosses. The story sucks as it takes place in media res, but you never really learn what happened beforehand, which is kind of important, plus it kinda just ends very abruptly. There's not much visual variety. But the campaign's still pretty damn good. Of course, 343's handling of the multiplayer was a fucking dumpster fire, but that's beyond the point. However, you seem to be just getting really up in arms over some of the most random shit, and making mountains out of molehills.
After such a tedious mission in the beacon section, to bring the game down even further with room after room of drones, empty hallways, switches, and cutscenes, it's just astonishing to me, and it left me feeling like I dislike this game more than I actually do. I've never played a Halo game this much. Never in my life did I think I'd play 20 to 30 hours of a Halo game, because it's not my thing. But this game has solid enough combat to keep me going till the end, and that's more than I can say for a lot of games where I just want to give up out of boredom. The final letdown was the ending itself. Not so much the story, but that I was expecting more main missions.
I'm really not sure why you're expecting more main missions after, beating the game. Because typically, when you beat a video game, it means you've completed all the main missions. I don't get this point. Though, I will give him that point he made about repeatedly fighting nothing but sentinels for a bit.
It felt like there should still be more to do, that the conflict isn't over. So what's the next mission? Instead, we're dumped back onto the island, which, to be fair, I was expecting to happen eventually, because of the open world nature of the game, right? You beat the game, and now you can go do all the side content and have fun. but maybe I was expecting a new series of side missions to unlock or something, because when I opened the map and looked at all there was to do, I just stared blankly and said, I don't really want to do any of this. I came back a few days later and did some assassination missions, some squad rescues, and it all felt hollow. It's certainly no GTA, where after the main story you can call up your girlfriend and talk to her about stuff, mess with the cops and create a big chase in the streets. Those games have cities that feel alive, so it feels good to just be there even after the story is done. Halo Infinite's world feels irrelevant after the story is over, unless you just want to go around and experience the combat some more. Which is fair, the combat is good, so there's some fun to be had there. But it's combat without mission context, so I have a hard time caring about it.
And yet, this is the same motherfucker who sucks off Doom Eternal. And there is still the context of, saving Marines, or infiltrating banished strongholds, or killing assassination targets. So it's not completely devoid of context.
It's not even an interesting place to be in. Every area pretty much looks the same trees, same rocks, no interesting landmarks, nothing that shows any history of the place. And maybe there's story or lore justification for this, but it's still pretty fucking boring to spend hours here. All the Marines are vapid clones that don't matter at all, there's no interesting wildlife, there's no indigenous life forms with a culture and society, it never rains or snows. And yeah, it's a military outpost, I get it, it's not gonna have some of this stuff. But that's why it's not a good setting for an open world game. Overall, for a game with Infinite in its title, it all feels quite small and limited. There's no New Game Plus that lets you take all your weapon unlocks into remixed combat encounters in the main and side missions. I hope they add that later because it's desperately needed. I appreciate the skull system, I do, but wouldn't it be nice to be able to start a new game with all your gear and upgrades and crank things up? Cause I'm here post-main mission and unlocking all this stuff for what exactly?
Again, the progression is only ancillary to the combat. The main focus is still the combat, and doing all the side content is meant to get you to engage in said combat.
In the end, Halo Infinite just left me feeling kinda empty. It's not that I didn't have fun, I told you about the cool boss fights and how fast and fun the combat can be sometimes, but it's not enough to offset all the other stuff that drags the experience down. Now, I realize this is just my experience. I know people who are really enjoying the game, mainly Halo fans who are happy to see something way better than Halo 5. So if they're happy, great. This game didn't need to please me nearly as much as it did them. But I don't feel motivated to play this game again or finish the side content. I'm sure Halo fans that took their time and just ran around the map doing all the side stuff first probably had a better time, but I just didn't feel motivated to do it because it feels so isolated and not connected to the overall experience. I'm gonna stop it there. That's my opinion on Halo Infinite's campaign. Did you like the game? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.
And just like that, the video is over. Yeah, this was a pretty bad review. He does bring up a few good points from time to time, but a lot of it is just Mayo not understanding Halo. He complains that there aren't long-form side quests with major rewards, even though that's not what Halo is about. He expects it to have RPG mechanics, even though it's not an RPG. He complains about lane play, which is entirely on him because the game gives you plenty of options for more aggressive and fun playstyles, and he just chooses to ignore them. And he tries to lecture people on what the core conceit of Halo is when he quite clearly has no idea what it is. Halo Infinite is certainly not without its flaws. But instead of focusing on the actual flaws of this game, he just goes into personal issues due to him not really enjoying Halo's kind of combat, which he's already made clear in the past. And he makes mountains out of molehills. But yeah, that's gonna be about it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and tell me what you think of Under the Mayo being a complete clown again. Anyways, that's it. Peace!